just commented about the size of the debris field. It is large. It appears to be 30 to 40 yards long, so it appeared that the helicopter impacted on the right, and most of the helicopter came to rest there. Right there, you can see a portion of the engine still, one of the engines still smoldering. There's pieces of the tail rotor that kind of continued on, and they came to a stop over there. So the deputies are on this footpath about a mile east, making a mile east of Las Virgenes Road, and we're just south of the 101 freeway up on the hills here. No vehicles from the LA County, either fire or deputies, have made it up here. It is just a footpath, so they've hiked in approximately a mile. They're looking around and looking at some of the other items on the in the debris field here. Of course, they're doing the grim work of covering the bodies of the people that perished in the crash here, taking a look around. So it's going to be an ongoing investigation, of course, and from our perspective, it appeared that the helicopter hit very, very hard. That's why we have that debris field that is as long as it did, and it absolutely shattered upon impact. Clearly, nobody could have possibly survived this, and clearly their demise was rather quick, immediate, I should say. So, again, the deputies there and fire department on scene right now, taking a look. We haven't seen anybody from the NTSB or FAA yet, but clearly they are on their way as well.
Derek,
back to you in the studio.
Derek, we know that on the morning news this morning, we had talked about fog. It was very foggy yesterday as well. It didn't clear out for quite some time. Do you have any idea what the weather conditions were at that time?
We have overcast here, excuse me, and limited visibility, and we understand it was foggier and the visibility was even lower than it is right now. So that could have been a factor. We just don't know quite yet. The helicopter, if it was flying along and in good condition, and weather was a factor, he was flying below the tops of the hills out here. Whether he had a mechanical issue is unknown at this time. We're just going to have to wait till the FAA and the NTSB complete their investigation.
All right. Derek Bell, live for us in Sky 5 HD. Will keep these images up. We're joined right now by Rick Chambers and Glenn Walker. Glenn, you're someone who lives not far from where this site happened. Can you talk about what the weather was like there this morning?
It was foggy, very foggy. I was a little surprised to hear that there was actually a helicopter flying. It's the kind of conditions that usually aircraft like that would be grounded. So I'm a little surprised. I was actually at a friend of mine's house in Palos Verdes last night. It lives up high enough where you were actually looking down at the marine layer, almost like you were flying. And I'm sure it was that way overnight, and it's just a little surprising. Apparently they were flying from his home down on the Newport Beach coast and flying up to, I think, Thousand Oaks to his basketball academy. That's what I was hearing.
Right, yeah, that's what we've been reporting,
So it's a little surprising if they would fly in those conditions.
And he was no stranger to a helicopter at all.
Oh, he used it all the time. Right.
He used it
all the time.
He would literally fly to home games.
Right.
I mean, because he was the money he made from the Lakers and endorsements, I mean, he was wealthy enough where he could literally fly a helicopter back and forth between Orange County and, the Staples.
And I know you still have to, give your flight plan. You need to make sure that people know that you're in the air. Like, you just don't take off in your helicopter. So they must have had to get some sort of clearance, I believe. I mean, it would be interesting for us to hear from other pilots. What are the boundaries that these private helicopters have in terms of when they can fly and what the conditions they can fly in.
Yeah, he used that Sikorsky, though, like one of us would use an SUV or a minivan or something, just moving around town with the kids and doing whatever he had to do. And probably this morning when they got up and the fog was there, it may not have been given a second thought, maybe other than the pilot. Everybody else, this was just the way they traveled. Yeah. Let's get in and let's go to practice, and then suddenly it ends up this way.
Rick, your perspective now that you're joining us here, when you first heard, you've covered...
Well, when I first heard, I was shocked right along with everybody else. At first I thought I had heard that he died in a crash. I thought it was a car crash at first. I was unaware that it was the helicopter that we were looking at on the news. When I came to L.A. back in '92, Gretzky was the big star, and everybody, I'm a big hockey guy, and so everybody was focused on that, and not until the late '90s when a young kid shows up in a Laker uniform, 18 years old, and then he's got Shaq right behind him coming in the same year. Suddenly the focus, I'm sure, of all Laker fans, but even mine, and not being a huge NBA or basketball fan, I had so much fun watching the two of them play for so much. and then to find out that he's this family man, and you know, all of us up here on the set, I think, for the most part, have kids, and to think of losing a 13-year-old daughter just kills me.
Well, the fact that his wife is now one of the survivors, along with the
But they-
baby they just had as well.
The babies, yeah.
They have Natalia, who's the oldest, I believe she's 17, Bianca, and their baby girl, Capri, who was born in June of last year.
Yeah, thoughts, prayers have got to go out to the rest of the Bryant family. You know, they're going to have a huge struggle on their hands, and trying to come to grips with this is going to take years.
Now, you just look at these pictures that you're seeing on the right hand of your screen, and we've seen this family grow together. We've seen him grow up. You know, the closeness, the bond. You can just, it's so apparent. It's so apparent.
Well, as Darren was mentioning before, I mean, it was all about the family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, basketball was the way he generated income, but all of his thoughts were on his wife and kids.
Well, just a prime example of what he was doing today. I mean, they were flying up to his
A
mom's
practice.
basketball academy, you know, for
his
his
daughter.
daughter, you know, to improve her game, and he was really into coaching her big time. So.
Well, you could tell when they're sitting on the sidelines and he's instructing her about what's going on in front of her, and she's acknowledging, yes, that's the way I'm seeing it, that's the way I understand it. They had such an amazing chemistry between them, and we're talking about Gigi at this point because we've seen her a number of times on the sidelines. That picture right there, another one, I mean, you could just tell just how much he cared about where these kids were headed.
And for all of us who've had teenagers, I have one. They don't always listen to you. They don't, you know, really want to know what you have to say, but she did. We just want to let you guys know that we understand that this news conference at the crash site is supposed to start in the next maybe minute and a half, 2 minutes. Yeah. So as soon as the officials get up to the podium, of course, we'll break away and bring you that live. But as we continue to look at this debris field and the crash site, you know, we saw the smoke, and it smoldered for so long. I was surprised for the amount of firefighters that were on scene, the first responders. I was really shocked that it was still smoldering hours later. And now when we're seeing the crash, it's still smoldering.
Still smoldering, yeah.
It's 2 o'clock, 2:11. It's happened just before 10 a.m. this morning, and it's still smoldering.
We've been asking a lot of folks to talk about their favorite moment, so to say. What was the most memorable moment? Somebody talking about the parades that they had. Is there a moment that you guys can think about? Is there a shot that he made, an assist that he had that sort of sticks with you more than others?
You asked me that on the phone, and I just said I remember the 2 championships that he won without Shaq, but I remember the first one the most because I still remember him jumping on the scores table, and I was standing by an exit across the court, and so his back was to me. But to look down at him standing on the table with his arms raised, soaking in the adulation and all of the confetti coming down, it was quite a moment. I mean, that's a man right now that is on top of the world.
Yeah. And he was about how old?
Well, it was his
early 20s.
Early 20s. It was his 4th NBA title. This was the first one without Shaq.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Still a young man.
Yeah, the first 3 titles I was actually working in New York. Of course, 2 of those titles they beat the New Jersey Nets. So we were all over that from the watching that from the other side, and those were 2 good Nets teams, and the Nets had been awful for.
Jason Kidd was on that team, I think.
Yeah, I mean the Lakers, they just destroyed the Nets 2 years in a row. They beat them, and ironically Byron Scott was the coach.
Yeah, I think the parades, the celebrations after and some of the crazy pictures that he and Shaq took together, just acting like, young NBA stars would. These 2 young guys that are going to go into the Hall of Fame, making a ton of money, just doing what they want to do, and here they are bringing in championship trophies to the club, and the hats are on sideways, they're kissing the trophy.
Champagne is going everywhere.
All of those types of things. I mean, whenever you saw him after a game like that, his face, he was just lit up. He was so proud to be part of it.
And thank goodness, there was a rift there between them. And thank goodness that was resolved, because you could imagine, the regrets that Shaq would have today if that had not taken place.
Yeah. We want to show you the right of your screen there. You see that this is where this news conference is going to be held, and all the reporters are there. We've got cameras there. We've got a microphone at the podium. They are expected to come out at any moment. We don't know exactly who is going to be speaking officially, but they will be introduced, and we'll be taking that live. I'm not even sure exactly where the location is. I thought it was going to be closer to the crash site. Is that the Sheriff's Department? Yeah. I think it might be the sheriff's department.
Which is really right,
Not too far from the city.
kind of around the corner
Right.
where the crash.
For people who might not be familiar of where this happened, it's right across the street from Church of the Canyon, and that is where the plane went down. It happened just shortly after 10 o'clock this morning, and we know that the cross streets, I believe, were Las Virgenes Road, and it's right by a school, so it's where a lot of people know, a lot of people gather, and there were so many people who went immediately to the scene. It was Wright Middle School is where it was. So I'm interested to see how they're continuing the investigation. I'm not sure if they're looking for debris, what they're looking for, or obviously they're going to have to clear this crash site and
This is going to
recover
go
the
on
bodies.
for a long
It's gonna be a
time.
terrible time.
Yeah.
So to give you an update, it's now 2:15, and we kind of thought this might happen. The press conference is now scheduled for 2:30, and it was supposed to be at 2 o'clock, but we are there, we're standing by, and we will bring it to you live.
Just looking on online, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar saying that he'll always remember Kobe as a man who was much more than just an athlete. And Darren, I think you were mentioning that before, that this was a guy that once he left the game, his sights were set on other things, and he was just moving ahead, but everything surrounded the family.
Like winning Oscars.
Well, exactly.
Right, you go win an Oscar.
And that project that he won the Oscar for, that short Dear Basketball, was so well done. And what a tribute to the passion that he had for the game of basketball and all that he had given. He had given his life, all of his time, sacrificed so much time away from his family with the training. Remember, towards the tail end of his career, he had significant injuries that required a lot of rehab. And that was very time consuming. And Vanessa has gone on record as saying, hey, our husband, our daddy is away. It takes a great deal of sacrifice to play this game. And then when it came time for him to set his sights on life after basketball, he then began venturing out, and we knew he had interest in film, and obviously won the Oscar. And you talked about his interest in music, where early on in his career he put out an album. This is
an author.
Yeah, he's written. He's he and everything he did, especially at the tail end of the career. Remember, he would go into Boston to play the Celtics, and he would take the day before and go to Harvard and sit in on classes, because he just had an insatiable desire for excellence and learning, and he wanted to find out about things that he didn't know about, and he's just
Spoke several languages.
yeah.
Fluent in
He
Italian.
grew up in
Europe.
Europe, too.
He grew up part of his childhood in Italy. His dad was playing there.
Yeah. Some people felt like he could have been a soccer player. He had that kind of athletic ability, and he loved that game as well. Went to the World Cup several times, so it's the whole city is just heartbroken.
Yeah, I think when he got nominated for the Oscar, I think a lot of people kind of stepped back and said, oh, come on, this is Kobe Bryant. What's he doing trying to venture into this?
Yeah.
And then suddenly when they saw the product and then he wins the award, suddenly you have that admiration that just kind of kicks into another gear. And now here's a guy who not only was one of the best of all time in basketball, now suddenly his first step into another field, and he wins
And
a
he's
top
victorious.
prize.
Right. I want to show you guys, we were talking about that we don't know exactly where the plane was going. We have been told it was the Mamba Sports Academy. I want to show you here on the iPad that there was a game. Kobe and Gigi were going to a 2 p.m. game at the Mamba Sports Academy, team against Fresno, and Kobe was going to go coach the game. So the Fresno Lady Heat and the Mamba. So that is where they were going.
You hear that word, Mamba, and it stands for Kobe Bryant and his drive, his competitiveness, this vicious
Killer
competitive.
instinct.
He just wants to put you away, and the Mamba mentality and all of that he developed. And when people hear that, they know exactly. Sometimes I'll look at games today and I'm like, that guy doesn't have the Mamba mentality.
I mean, you can say it outside of basketball.
Yeah.
How do you live your life with the Mamba mentality? It applies to so many things, and he showed us that.
Yeah.
Can we also look from Blake Griffin? Again, so many people going to social media. This is from Blake Griffin saying very few people actually transcend the word iconic, and you're one of them. You'll be missed. Number 8, number 24. That's a great picture. And there's one more I want to show you here. That's from Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
No words, just broken hearts.
Owner of the Dallas Mavericks right there. Darren, can you talk about Laker Nation, what they're likely going through right now? I guess we're all, Doc Rivers said it today, we are all Lakers today.
He was the guy. I mean, you know, he was so loyal. He was so passionate. His work ethic, and everybody, you know, we hear about the beef that he had with Shaq, and it was simply because Kobe was such a hard worker, and he did everything in his power to win. And Shaq was just a natural athlete, and he wasn't, you know, the work. I'm not saying he didn't work hard, but he certainly wasn't working like Kobe.
He didn't have the work ethic like Kobe.
He get the surgeries in the off season and all that stuff, and that kind of irritated.
Shaq was lazy when he wanted to be. It's that plain and simple.
You know, the fact that he spent 20 years here in Los Angeles, he was here.
But the fact they reconciled their differences before this happened is really good.
That he won.
Because a lot of people don't get the chance to like reconcile with, you know, like a best friend or their family or something before something real tragic, before something tragic happens.
Defensively, he was on all defense teams. He was a guy that, you know, scored, you know, in excess of 80 points in one game. I'll never forget the finale of his career. They were taking on the Utah Jazz, and he had that 60-point performance. You know, talking about a guy who's repaired Achilles, you know, all the injuries, the broken fingers, all the things he had over the years, his body breaking down, and he gave us one last thing to remember him by. And he won a dramatic game. He hit big shots down the stretch to pull it out. And, you know, we said at the time, you know, I think that team had won 17 games that year. And we said, hey, forget the team. This guy is a champion. And he left the game at the top. He, you know, he will forever be remembered as the Mamba, you know, 5-time champion. That's what he was about. He wasn't about, you know, all the other stuff that a lot of players that come into the game today, they're about branding and about social media. He wasn't about all that. He was about winning championships.
Was he an NBA All-Star most of that time? 18 years?
18-time NBA All-Star out of his 20 years.
And talks about his work ethic.
That night you were talking about, I remember, it's like, oh, this is nice. He's gonna score like 35 points. He's gonna have a good night. You know, it's a good way to go out. And God, he may score 40. He may score 50. Yeah. Oh my God, he scored 60 points.
Yeah. Can I show you? There's a statement now from the Clippers from Steve Ballmer that we have on our iPad. It says the Clippers mourn the sudden and devastating loss of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna. Kobe, an icon and an institution in this city and this sport, inspired teammates and opponents alike with his commitment, determination, and drive. Kobe was a singular figure who left an indelible mark on the community and the world. His family, friends, fans, Lakers organization are in our thoughts and prayers. We will miss him. Let me see if I can get that to connect. But you hear the words. So you might look again, but again, this is from Steve Ballmer, who is LA Clippers chairman. So many people wanting to reach out and make a statement, and that's what we're saying.
And we heard from Doc Rivers earlier as well, and he was holding back tears, just talking about the interaction that he had with Kobe over the years and the talks they used to have when they'd run into each other. And I think a lot of people, the big fans this morning, shed a lot of tears. There were a lot of people that just couldn't believe what they were hearing when they turned on the news this morning.
Wow,
from the LA Chargers.
Listen to this. The Clippers are actually playing a game against Toronto, in Toronto, and it said both the Raptors, this is actually the Spurs.
Yeah.
Raptors and the Spurs ran out the 24-second shot clock on their first possession of the game in honor of Kobe Bryant.
Number 24.
Wow.
What a tribute.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of that happening. You know, we have the Grammys this evening. You've got a lot of other games coming up. I think there's going to be a lot of people stopping, spending a moment just reflecting on the way he affected their lives, the sport, just LA in general.
Everything he did was with excellence. Yeah. I mean, you got to remember when he became one of the Nike branded athletes, he developed the most popular sneaker that was worn by NBA players. And every year people were looking forward to what kind of sneaker it is. I mean, so he was at the top of that industry. Whatever he got involved with, it was the best. It was to do it at the top.
You can speak about, he had good comedic timing too. Remember that famous Nike commercial with him, and I think it was Kanye West? And he said something along the lines of, he gave some advice and he said, "You're welcome." No one said thank you, but it was the funniest commercial. I can't remember when it ran, but as you said, I'm sure he did that like he played basketball. He wanted to get his lines down. He wanted it to be perfect, and boy, was it. It
really was. I mean, he was a remarkable person. He really was, and he will be missed. There will never be another one like him. He has inspired a whole generation of young basketball players. I'm fascinated to see how the NBA and other players around the league are going to pay tribute. But I wouldn't be surprised if his number got retired around the league. He was that kind of guy. He's highly regarded.
Which one?
Let's go live now, too, actually. We're waiting for that news conference. It's going to start in the next, we hope, 4 or 5 minutes. But we have Kareem Winter, who is live at the scene, and we're going to go to her right now. Kareem.
Lynette, I can tell you emotions running so high out here. This is where a lot of fans have been coming, fans like Omar and Patty, who we'll talk to in just a second. But there are hundreds of people stretched for blocks all along here. And for many, like Omar, the reality of these deaths still hasn't really sunk in it. It's been such a difficult day for you.
It's a tragic day. It's very, very sad. I had to come here and see it for myself because I just couldn't believe it. This is such... It's a big loss for the community. The NBA, the world. He's known all over the world for everything that he's done, and it's a huge loss. And I feel so bad for his family, his wife, his mom, his dad.
I hope his parents all right, and the rest of his other kids and stuff, you know.
You said you had to drive out for it to sink in, and we're not going to pan in too close up behind me. This is where
cherish every day you on this earth, man, because you never know when your last day gonna be.
Still smoldering.
A lot of people don't cherish the life they got, the air they breathe, and the people around them. So what I want y'all to do is just cherish every day you're above ground, because any day could be your last.
Looking over my shoulder. To think that
I'm going to end the video for y'all. I'm going to do another video when they do the little conference with all the other information.
Like a legend, but did so much